Good afternoon, Michelle. Well, I already know the answer I will get from SG on that he's not moved by the numbers, but simply collates and presents the data. But of course, promising that 1.4 percentage points improvement in the third quarter. But of course, that unemployment rate still remaining stubbornly high, Michelle. And I'd like to start the conversation with Statistician General Risenga Maluleke on that issue where he said, while the unemployment rate is decreasing, it's decreasing at an increasing rate. Please just help us make sense of that statement in context of the quarterly labor force survey that you just announced this morning.
Ntokozo, I know that at some stage in the media, particularly social media, there was a lot of interest. The former Premier of Limpopo once said that unemployment is increasing at a decreasing rate. And many people had ridiculed him. And it is real, it does happen. When you see unemployment rising, but employment rising a lot more stronger than unemployment, the rate will decrease. But in this quarter, third quarter that we are talking about particularly, we have seen employment increasing from the second quarter by 294,000 people, from 16.7 million to 16.9 million. And we have seen unemployment decreasing from 8.4 million. It decreased by 393,000 to 8 million. And that has returned an unemployment rate of 32.1%, meaning that it has gone down from the previous quarter by 1.4 percentage points. But that is on the official side. When we go to the expanded unemployment rate, we take the 8 million people who are actively looking for employment, plus another 3.4 million discouraged work seekers, as well as 800,000 persons who said they didn't look for employment for reasons other than discouragement, but would have taken up employment had it been available. Then we come to about 12.2 million people. And that brings us to about 41.9% as the unemployment rate expanded. And of course, I know, as stats say, we usually get blamed that we don't make the expanded unemployment rate available. And I'm saying we have always made it available.
And let's talk a little bit about that long-term unemployment, especially when we look over the past decade. Does the data perhaps point to some structural issues when it comes to really dealing with that long-term unemployment that does affect the most vulnerable in the labor market, including then Black women, youth as well? What are some of the issues that the data points to there?
Let us start with the concept of structural unemployment. Structural unemployment occurs when the skills set in the nation or any nation doesn't match the jobs that are there. So no matter how much you advertise the jobs, people are not able to take up jobs. So now let us look at our cases, South Africa. Structural unemployment tends to go along the population groups, as in what race you belong to. Because if you look, unemployment affects the Black Africans the most than it affects the white population and the Indian population. The Black Africans and the coloureds are actually much more vulnerable to labour markets. Having said that, it's even much more when you are a Black African woman, because a Black African women, their unemployment rate is sitting at about 38.6%, which is actually much more high. It's 38.1%. which is 4 percentage points higher than the national average. But I want to come to long-term unemployment. Let us look at where we were a decade ago. The number of unemployed people was sitting at 5.2 million persons. But the population at the time was sitting at about 57 million. And I'm talking about the total population. So 5.2 million persons, those that were in long-term unemployment, that is those that were unemployed for 12 months or longer, were sitting at 3.4 million, which represented 66% of those that are unemployed at the time of 5.2 million. Where we are now, we are having those that are unemployed sitting at 8 million, vis-a-vis the long-term unemployment of 6.1 million. that represents about 76.7%. So we have seen a 10.7 percentage points jump in about a decade in terms of long-term unemployment. But one thing that we must appreciate is that the population has also grown. We were sitting at 57 million persons, people in South Africa at the time. We are now sitting at 63 million people in terms of our recently released population media estimates.
SG, as always, thank you for talking to us and just helping us make sense of that data. And Michelle, talking about that long-term unemployment, that is where we are taking the story forward, speaking to some people that have really felt the hit of gaining employment and then losing that employment soon after and being in the unemployment queue for 12 months or longer. So we'll unpack sort of the emotional and mental impact that it has on those people as they go on the journey then of trying to secure employment, especially now, Michelle, as we are heading towards the festive season. We know several financial pressures do come up that might really affect someone's emotional and mental state. So I'll be heading out to Katlehong to hear from some people who have struggled with long-term unemployment until they decided to do something about it. And we'll hear what it is that they decided to do to just get some income going while they are looking for, sustainable work, Michelle.